In this video, I'll give you some insight about how the Figaf tool can help make it easier for you to run SAP CPI. We have a number of different functions we support. First is the operations, which is support, alerting, monitoring. We have a DevOps approach where we'll enable you to do governance. And then we have a testing approach to enable you to test easier. And lastly, we also have some functionality to make it easier for you to develop. These are the things I'll cover in this video. So let's first start out with alerting and monitoring. So we have different ways of looking at the iflows, and we can set up query parameters. So you can search for either all iflows in errors or iflows that have receiver equal log or whatever specific iflow attributes you want to search for. And what we'll then do is we'll download all of these different iflows with this specific property. And what you can then do is you can go in, see the data here. What's all the data that occur. If there's attachment, it will also show those. You can open the iflow and the rule, and here you can specify what type of rule it is, what step number. That means all of these alerts will be processed one by one, and once it finds a rule that matches it, it will say, okay, now we have found this. You can mute it for a specific period of time. You can write an email or a template about, once you get this, this is how to fix it, making it a lot easier for people to solve issues instead of researching it from the ground up. And you can send it to email or webhooks to Jira, Solman, whatever you want as external tools for this. The next part is our monitoring ability. And here we have an ability to specify that in this tile, we want to look at finance iflow. We can give users access to view these finance iflow with or without payloads. And for duration, we can set up different query parameters, and we can specify which iflows we want to view as a part of this. So if we go in and see what this looks like, we can see we have sent the FSD, we have sent the receiver information, we have attachments, we can see all this information in, and that makes it really simple for us to see the data that's going on here. And obviously we can assign this to users so they will only see the iflow that matters to them in one tile per process, per scenario, whatever makes sense. The last thing we have is a system monitor that enables you to see how did your system perform over the last period of time, how many messages was it processing, what was the latency, CPU and memory usage. And you can set up rules based on this. If the memory usage is above something, trigger an alert. The next part I want to cover is how we do DevOps. How do we enable you to deliver SAP CPI integrations faster without having to document all the different things that's going on in a really simple way. So we can see here we have created some changes to an iflow and a package and value mapping, and we want to then assign this to a specific business ticket, and the ticket is a way for us to represent what's going on in this case. So this will link to your Jira, request, your Solman, ServiceNow, wherever the business have asked you to develop these things. So we'll create a new one. Who is in charge of this? What landscape do we want to run it on? Which ServiceNow incident or Jira, so you know we've made this as a part of this. And obviously this will never replace those tools, but it is a way for you to gather information about what has been changed as a part of this this governance. Next up is, so now we have linked all the objects that's a part of this. Next up, we want to test what's going on, and we have some test cases created already, and we can take these test cases, we will select them from the archive, and we'll see, okay, in this change, these are the messages we have. We can then specify we want to run it on a specific system. We'll select our development system. And what this will do is it'll switch the iflow into trace mode. It will send the messages. And once it has sent the messages, it will enable us to start downloading the messages. And this will just take a little while, so I'll just pause the video. So now the processing is done. We can close the window. And we can see we have some alerts on this case. What's the reason for this? We can view our results. We can drill in and see, okay, there's actually some errors here. What were they? And we can see the payload we have here. If we want to ignore specific elements, we can just say ignore postal code. And we can see that there was one item that was changed from 80 to 290, and I guess that's probably okay regards to this. So what we can do is we can just update this, and then next time we run it, this is now our new goal. So you have really a simple way to make sure that your test cases are current and you support that process. So now we have tested our approach. We have gone through and validated that each of the different discrepancies, they are okay. We have obviously been running it a couple of times to just make sure we got successful test cases. Next up is we want to transport this, and we have created a transport system that allows you to transport packages, iflows, value mappings in this same approach, so you don't need to transport full packages or anything like that. It's just the processes that you need for this. So now we can see we have created a package here. We can see what's in this. We have the value mapping, we have our iflow, and what we can go in and check with the iflow is we can go here. We can see in our QA, in our dev environments called this, on our system we only have one instance, so that means we are using virtual systems for it. So we are just post-fixing content with QA, as our QA system is called. We can then specify all these API keys or whatever we're using in this processing, making it possible for us to configure everything in just one screen. So if you had the prod environment also, you can configure everything here without having to go into the different systems once you've deployed it to see what's going on. And we can see here there's actually a problem that the security reference is not on the target system. We could obviously go fix that and say, hey, this is a problem, we need to configure this. And obviously we can do the same for all the URLs, PRD, so we can configure everything. And the cool thing is that once you have done that, you can set this to approval. So if you have some architects in charge of your transport, they can then be notified, hey, I got this transport, please approve it. I'm logged in as a user that also has access to approve it, so I can approve it, say fine, or I can reject it if you haven't followed procedure, if used too many scripts, and the approver obviously have access to all the changes that's a part of this, so he can see what kind of scripts he has made of changes and stuff like that. So now we have approved it, we can import it, and it will then do the import. It will configure the new package, it will run deployment of value mappings and iflows, configurations and everything like that, so it will just take a few minutes to process that, a few seconds. So that was pretty quick. We have now imported all of these things, and we can still see we're getting the error that the user password is invalid. And we obviously want to fix that and deploy it and check it again. But now we have completed our transport, we have moved it into our QA environment. If you had a production environment, you can then import it again on the later system. You have the option to run the test again on the QA system to ensure that it still works in that environment. And now it's just about resolving. It's saying, hey, we fixed this, everything's good. We can create a report, and the idea with this report is you want developers to document what they have done as a part of this change request, or put it into a service request, whatever you have it. So here we got all the information about this, what all the objects in the different system we have imported, at what specific time, what test cases, how well did we run these reports, and what were the differences, and what were the transported objects that we had as part of this. So this gives us really a lot of insight about what has been done as a part of this, and you can then put this into ServiceNow Jira to document this is what we did. Another part of documentation you often need to create is some kind of an Iflow documentation that covers what is this Iflow about, and what have we done as a part of this? And what we have created here is a tool that just enables you to take the Iflow, create a diagram that describes these are the issues we have with it, so you can see the full history about everything that we have done in it. We have specified what are the connections we have in it, how many test cases we have, how did they run last time. We have a flattened view of the Iflow, so you got some documentation about what's going on. We have information about all the connections we have set up. So here we can see the small change we made about the QA one was called prod, so that we can see here, and the same thing for all resources. So this gives us really a deep insight about what's being changed as a part of this this change. So we can obviously go back to the ticket, and we can also see all the other objects that's been assigned as a part of this, making it a lot simpler for you to govern your CPI processes. And we have the option to create releases, so if you have multiple changes as a part of release, a new wave that you're doing of development, you can all register them in one go. The next thing I want to talk about is testing and the way we're creating test cases and running them. So the idea is we want to make it easy to create test cases, and the easiest way for us to do that is to switch the Iflow into trace mode, being able to capture the input and all the consecutive step of this, and then we can process this. So if we start recording here, we can add it to a test case. We can specify how many messages we want for this. We can say OK, and now we are ready to start the recording. So now we will then wait. The system will be set into trace mode automatically, and then it's just about waiting until someone can trigger the messages. And obviously it's easiest if you can trigger these messages manually from your QA development or productive system, so you can actually see what's going on. And I've done that, and now it's just about pulling, and it's the same process that we have for this. So yeah, it just takes a little while to download all the messages. We can see the different steps as a part of this. And then the running is really the same way as we had before. We can run it in a number of different ways. If it's process direct HTTP, SOAP, then we can send messages into it directly and compare the result and see how it goes. If it's anything else, we replace the existing channel with our own channel. So if you have a scheduled scenario, we can also test that in the same approach. If you have services that require you to call out to, for instance, in SuccessFactors, create employee, you cannot really do that multiple times because it will just say, hey, employee already exists. And to facilitate that, we are setting up the Figaf tool as a way to mock those services. So you'll be able to test the flows, everything like that. And the only thing you need to go into is to go to the test configuration, and then you specify here, don't use a original receiver, and it will instead replace that, handle all the configuration of synchronizing with the existing code, the new mocked service, without you having to do anything. Another part is if you have confidential HR data and you want developers to be able to test on it, but not really being able to govern these things. One of the things we have created to alleviate this is we have created a test case, and in this test case, if you run that, it will be masks. All data in this will be masked, so you can see that there is a we can view it in the encoded version, and the encoded version will then mask all the payloads that we have. So we can see there's an error in a specific field, but we cannot really see what the error is, and this makes it really good if you're testing data from your productive HR system on the QA system, and then giving developers access to see everything work okay, but this field we had here was changed and that was okay. So that's our confidential data that we have as a part of this. The last thing I wanted to cover in this is our ability to make it easier for you to develop a CPI. A big part of that is we have a Git repository that we will populate, and so once you have connected your Figaf tool to your CPI system, it's downloading all the content you have. It will then start pushing this data into a Git repository, and it will also give you all the required elements that you need. So this is all the abstract classes that you need to run these. It will give you templates that you just need to copy paste. So you don't really need to do anything with this. You just need to go through, and once you've done that, you have a full environment that you can use. Then if you want, if you have created a test case, one of the things that you can then do is you can take this test case for a CPI object. So we have 13 test cases here. It's good. We can select it here. We have the messages here, and we have this generate Groovy scripts. And what this will do is it will go through this test case, all the in and output messages of where you're using Groovy scripts, and then it will simply populate a Groovy script template that you can just use. With this, you can just run it, and you have the ability to run everything here. We want to reload. We can see what was the errors that we got in there. We have the ability to set up tracing if you want to trace these instead, or debug and go in debug mode on these things. And then here we have the test case. So we got the input part with header, attributes, properties, and body, and the output, and then we'll just compare the input and the output after it has run this. So this is really a simple way to set up test cases. And obviously, if you want to enhance it, you also have the ability to create your own mock based on this. So you can specify, use this input, and then you can set up assertions that we want to see. We have created an attachment, we have created these things. So you can add that as a part of this also. Another thing it's created is it's created this this ability to upload directly from in here. So it comes with some Gradle plugins, and these Gradle plugins simply allow you to call the CPI system, deploy, manage, or run any Iflows that you have here. It also has the ability to run the Figaf test cases, all from the IDE. So once you have edited the scripts, the XSDs, or whatever you are editing here, you can upload it, and these Gradle plugins should also work on Eclipse if you want to use that instead. The last thing we have added is on our objects, we also have oh, that's not that one. On our scripts, we have shared object, and with a shared object, it means that if we have, for instance, a script on XSD that is being changed on any of the other scripts, you can then say, hey, it's not updated on this other script. You have the ability to update it on that specific script, so on that specific Iflow, so making it a lot easier for you to manage all these general scripts that you have that you're applying, and make sure they're current on all Iflows. And obviously, if you're doing those changes, you can run regression testing and see if everything works as you expect it to do. So that is what the tool is able to do, making it a lot easier for you to manage, run SAP CPI. You can go to figaf.com/IRT, set it up, download it, and run it in a matter of hours, probably less than an hour. You can get up and run and set a lot of these things up and be able to deliver SAP CPI content a lot faster. I do hope you liked this video. If you like, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you.